Have you ever sat in a meeting watching someone laugh a half second too loud at the boss's joke and just known something was off? Not because anyone told you, not because there was proof, you just felt it, the way you feel a change in weather before the clouds show up. And maybe 5 minutes later, you're second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're imagining things, or worse, if something is wrong with you for noticing what nobody else seems to catch. Here's the strange part. We tend to assume that people who notice too much are anxious, paranoid, maybe a little exhausting to be around. The friend who reads into every text message, the coworker who picks up on tension in a room before a single word is spoken. We call them overthinkers. We call them sensitive. Sometimes we call them dramatic. But what if the noticing itself isn't the problem at all? What if it's actually one of the most sophisticated things your brain knows how to do, and the discomfort you feel isn't a flaw, it's a signal that you're paying attention to a world most people are sleepwalking through? Let's slow down and actually look at what's happening in your head when you notice too much. Psychologists have a term for people who process sensory and emotional information more deeply than average: high sensitivity, first studied extensively by psychologist Elaine Aron in the 1990s. She found that roughly 15 to 20% of people have nervous systems that are simply wired to take in more, to filter less, to catch the micro-expression that flickers across a face before it gets replaced by a polite smile. That's not a character flaw. That's a neurological setting, like the difference between a camera with a wide aperture and one that only captures what's directly in front of it. Think about your brain for a second as a security system for an apartment building. Most people have a system that only flags the big stuff, someone kicking down the front door. But if you're a person who notices too much, your system is calibrated to also flag a window left a crack open, a shadow moving oddly in the hallway, the sound of footsteps that don't quite match anyone who lives there. Exhausting? Sure. Sometimes it means you're bracing for danger that never comes, but it also means you almost never get blindsided. You see the argument coming before it starts. You feel the friendship fading before the other person admits it out loud. That's not anxiety talking. That's pattern recognition, built from 1,000 tiny data points your conscious mind never even bothered to catalog. There's a reason this feels so personal, so tied to identity rather than just a quirky trait. Growing up, a lot of people who noticed too much were told subtly or not so subtly that they were too much, too sensitive, too intense, too observant for their own good. And so many of them learned to shrink that noticing down, to mute it, to apologize for it, which is a strange kind of tragedy if you think about it, because what they were actually being punished for was accuracy. Imagine telling a smoke detector to stop being so dramatic every time it smells smoke.
There's fascinating research here too, from the world of interpersonal neuroscience, showing that people with heightened sensitivities to social cues often have more active mirror neuron systems, the brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we watch someone else perform it. It's part of how empathy physically works. So when you walk into a room and immediately sense that your friend is upset, even though she's smiling, you're not making it up. Your brain is literally simulating her emotional state inside your own head, in real time, without your permission. That's not overthinking. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, just turned up a few notches louder than everyone else's. Of course, there's a cost. Noticing everything means you're rarely at rest. Your brain doesn't get the luxury of ignoring the fluorescent hum of an office, the passive-aggressive pause in a text message, the tiny shift in someone's tone when they say, "I'm fine," and clearly aren't. It's a bit like trying to read a book in a room where 12 other conversations are happening at once, and somehow you can't help but hear every single one of them. That kind of awareness can tip into anxiety if it isn't managed, because a brain that notices everything can start treating every small thing as equally urgent, the open window and the kicked-down door sounding the same alarm. But here's the reframe, and I want you to actually sit with this one. The people throughout history who changed things, who wrote the songs that made you cry, who caught the fraud everyone else missed, who sensed the war before the headlines did, who comforted a grieving friend with exactly the right words at exactly the right moment. Those people noticed too much. Their sensitivity wasn't the obstacle to their gift, it was the source of it. Depth of perception has always been mistaken for weakness by people who've never had to carry it. So if you're someone who reads a room before you even sit down in it, who feels the emotional temperature shift before anyone says a word, maybe stop apologizing for it. Maybe start asking what it's trying to tell you instead of trying to mute it. Your noticing isn't a malfunction. It's a kind of quiet intelligence the world doesn't always know how to reward, but that doesn't make it any less real. If this hit something in you, if you've spent years being told you're too much, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, because I promise you, you're not the only one sitting there feeling seen right now. And if you want more of this, the psychology of the things we rarely talk about out loud, stick around. There's a lot more where this came from.